Hey, HR friends, welcome to the first ever blog post. So, this vlog is going to be a live instructional video, and I'm going to walk you through how I use our technology. Now, for the most part, what I'm using here is the same as what you have. The only thing you're going to notice difference is I have tabs on the bottom. I prefer to use the tabs, and we have an extra tab. We have this electromagnetic tab. And this is what shows the unseen electromagnetics. I'll explain what that is in just a second. But this is the only part you don't have, okay? And the reason why is because to make these charts is a ton of data, and to download this and then to use this on an average computer, people are going to pull their hair out. It's going to be so slow. Both myself and my friend Jeremy had to upgrade our computers just in order to develop and run this program. So that is why we have this tab and you don't. And these tabs, the home, the advanced, the dashboard, the events, the family, here it is. Home, the advanced, the dashboard, the events, and the family. Now, for the most part, I'll try to use these to navigate around with so you get an idea. And if we're going to the Electro, then obviously I'm going to use this because that tab does not exist here. Okay. Now, once you get your tool set up and you get your user information in here, we imagine you've gotten all that done. We've got all kinds of informational videos that walk you through that. Macros unlocked. Macros just do multiple controls, so you have to do less, and these buttons are programmed to do more for you. And the first button we're going to look at, so once you open this thing up and you've got your right user and you make sure you've got your right time. I'm in the Eastern time zone. This is Naples, Florida. And so obviously you got to have it in the right time zone. If you don't, all of this data is going to be off. Very, very important that you have this set to the time zone you're in. Now, once that's done, you would literally just hit enter current date and time. Now, we're actually going to start a little different here. So our first ever post is happening on the summer solstice in the northern hemisphere, which would be the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. And what I want to do is I want to show you how I look at all the different people in my family, because in my tool, I've got my entire family, all kinds of friends, and all kinds of people that have been helping me develop this technology. Now, I'm not going to put their information up on these informational videos. So we've made fictitious users. That doesn't mean that I can't show you how I would use this, okay? So the first thing I'd want to do here, when we switch out on a mental frequency and when we switch out on an emotional frequency. So this is the small m, the micro mental, this is the macro emotional, and look at, you know these status bars here, you can see there's a status bar, there's no status bar here, and there's no status bar here, and all of these are cleared out too because everything is reset at one time. That's what's creating all of these polarity moments. You see them? Those little hash colored boxes there? The rose ones, that means there's an alignment happening. And these little hashed out ones or these little hyphenated ones, that means there's a polarity moment happening. Okay, so there's lots of polarity happening in and around the time I'm making this video. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move us back 15 minutes. So pretty soon you're going to have to really just learn this stuff. Okay, so the small p moves the clocks 15 minutes. The large P will move the clocks 12 hours. The small e will move the clocks 3.5 hours. The large E will move the clock 6.5 days. The small m will move the clocks 7.5 days. And if we hit the big M here, that moves it an entire year. Okay. So all I want to do is I want to go back 15 minutes before the solstice occurred. Okay. So that's what I've just done here. I pushed it. It's going to go back 15 minutes. And you see now it's in the middle of the graph instead of being in the front of the graph. The way we've designed this is we always want you to see 12 hours. So when the time bar gets to this halfway point, the whole graph shifts over, and that way you always see what's coming, okay? But what I want to show you is how you can look at macro functions. But more than that, I want you to see how much the E and the M moves with each individual user, because different sequences are going to affect different people that are around you in your life. So I really recommend people have a bunch of users in here. So let me show you. Mine doesn't really change too much. You can see my blue macro, that's this one right here. That kind of comes down in this 12-hour period, right? And you can see my purple macro, well, that one only moves a little bit too. And you can really squint here. You can see my micro mentals right here, and that just comes up just a little bit here. Now, all of the things I'm talking about are right down here. Here's the macro. So the thick line that's magenta, that's the macro for the mental. The thick line that's purple, that's the macro for the emotional. And the thick line that's blue, well, that's the macro for the physical. The thin lines and the corresponding colors are the micros. It's not that hard. And there's only 6 things you're looking at here, and these 6 things are connected to these 6 things right here. We have 6 different awarenesses that are running, and that's how these are connected to that. Now, we're going to get more into this. Don't worry. This is going to overwhelm you in the beginning. I'm well aware. All right. Okay. So let's cycle through some users here because everybody's going to have something different. Like when you open up your tool, well, what I have doesn't really help you, but learning how to read this, you'll understand here in just a second. So we're just going to scan through a couple users here and we're going to find some variations. So if this was somebody in my family, I would want to know because look at their emotional macro just went up into an elevated state, and so did their micro mental went into an elevated state, and their physical P went into an elevated state. So when we have these transitions in between like a 6.5 day awareness, and in this case, a 7.5 day awareness too, you can see how much change there's going to be from the second that moment happens. So on one side of the solstice, this is what this user was experiencing. And on the other side of the solstice, within a split second, now all of a sudden, all of this stuff changes and it's going to alter the way they feel. It's going to alter their mood and it's going to create different areas of their body that they're going to notice more. That's how this works. All right, so let's just go through a couple more users here so you can see this variation. All right, we're going to pull up the Scorpio user. Now, look at this. This is the opposite. You see how in this user, their physical macro dropped off. In this user, their micro mental. You see the little micro mental line here? That dropped off and they had an emotional drop off. So instead of going up like the previous user, this user is actually going into a more relaxed state, which means this next 7.5 day and 6.5 day is going to be easier for them. Now you really want to pay attention to the purple line and you really want to pay attention to this small magenta line because when they go up into the agitated state, that's going to make it harder to keep things together emotionally and to keep things together mentally. And by mentally, I mean staying positive, not blaming other people, not having all of that head game that goes on. You're going to see that when these rhythms elevate up, what really happens is the talking in your head starts to elevate up. It was an eye-opening experience for me when I first started doing this because you can actually see when your anxiety is coming, or you can see now when your depression is going to come. Pretty soon, you're going to know what your rhythm looks like when you feel depressed, or when you feel anxious, or when you have a lot of energy. And it's important to start to understand this because that way you don't end up getting worked over by your rhythms, and instead you harness them. We're trying to help you to understand how to harness the power of your body. All right. Let's go through a couple more rhythms here. Let's go to Sagittarius and see what we got going on. Okay, so here's another great example. So this user in a pretty relaxed state, and all of their fields went up as soon as the solstice hit. Okay, so you see how there's this elevation in the emotional. You see how there's this elevation in the P frequency, and also there's going to be an elevation in this micro mental frequency. It's coming up and staying under this one. All right, let's move to another one, and then we're going to move on here. Let's try Aquarius. Now, I just use the astrology names because it's easy. You know what month we're dealing with, or you have a proximity of a year, and I want you to see how different users throughout the years, it's going to change their rhythms. But really, you could be born in the same month and have completely different rhythms and the same year. All right. So same thing here. This user went up, this user went up, and this user went up. So every time there's going to be a change here at the 6.5 day frequency and the 7.5 day frequency, what's going to happen is your individual rhythms are either going to be shifting up, shifting down, or pretty much staying where they were constant. Okay. Now, it's advantageous when they stay constant. Sometimes it's nice when they shift down. I personally sometimes like it when they're running a little bit faster because I can harness that energy. You know what I'm saying here? So in the beginning, I just want you to start to really pay attention as we switch out. Now, every 12 hours, this P frequency changes. This one has a lot of movement. But this purple one and this small magenta one, they're only moving every about 6.5 and 7.5 days. Now, sometimes there's some subtle movements, but nothing like what you're seeing here. Let's do one more. I feel like there's something we're missing. All right, here's another example of an emotional rhythm with a pretty significant drop down. Okay, so now what you would do is not only are you trying to get to know your rhythms, but this is pretty good stuff. So if this is a husband and wife, or if you're looking at your rhythms for your children, this is a big deal. you might see this in a kid and think, oh man, this could be what sets off, for example, a depressed state in the beginning. Like when this drops off and maybe they just don't feel like themselves and they're down on energy and you're starting to worry about them, having the ability to see what their rhythms are and then understanding how they affect us, it really starts to take the worry out of this. Okay. So we're just trying to help you orientate you what we're looking at here. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to take you to real time. So that's this button right here. This is a macro function. You hit this one time, and what it's going to do is it's going to take me to the actual time that I'm making this video. So this is Thursday, 6:20. We're about 3 hours since the solstice, not quite yet. And this is real time. Now, let me bring you to my rhythms. So this is how easy it is to change out a user. Pretty simple, pretty fast. As soon as you change out the user, this is going to adjust, and now it's showing my rhythms here. So first thing I want to show you here is this little down spot. So you see here and here. Every 12 hours, this is a rest phase. Now, if you can capture this, this is pretty advantageous, meaning this is when your body is starting to slow down and go into what we call in the medical world a parasympathetic state. So your parasympathetics are starting to kick in, and that's the fancy $10 doctor word for it's when your body does some rest, recovery, and healing. So if this is me, you see, every time my rhythm starts over on a new P frequency, what happens is I have a little spike and then I get hungry, and then this is where I eat right in here. And then I lay down and I rest and I let my body digest while it has this period right here of parasympathetic activity. I time my eating to this portion right here. Now, everybody, let me show you. Let me show you a different user. They're all different. So it depends on the time of the day that you're born, but look at this user. They're at the end of the sequence. This happens every 12 hours. If you can get it, get it. If you can rest and eat during this time, if you can take a break during this time. Now, in this user's case, you see how there's an elevation here in this little purple one? What is this purple one? So this is the thin purple one, which means it's the micro emotional. And here's the thing. Every time you see a movement where it goes up or a movement where it goes down, that's creating a polarity moment. So sometimes it's hard to rest. It's hard to rest when part of your frequencies or part of your rhythms are in a rest phase, part of your rhythms are in an active phase or an agitated phase. So this is where it's really important to eliminate the stress in your life. Because when these moments down here come, you want to be able to relax and not worry about anything. And the worst thing is to go and eat and then sit down and relax, and then all of a sudden your emotions in your head starts to rush because you've got stuff in your life you haven't taken care of. That's what's going to happen here. So that's why it's so important that we're trying to help you smooth out, work out, create good communication and cooperation in all your relationships, because that's how you're going to harness this and the power of this. Now, that's every day. I call this harnessing the healing power of the body, and everybody's different. And when you get your tool, you are going to want to know when this time hits. And the nice thing is we put this time bar here. So you can see what's going on, and we can help you at least estimate when it is you'd want to take a break, when you'd want to eat. Like, for example, there are times when your rhythm will drop here and you'll feel like having a little snack, but you wouldn't want to eat a lot. Why? Why wouldn't you want to eat a lot here? One, you're not going into very strong parasympathetic, so digestive function is really not going to be that strong. You're going to fill your tummy up with something you're not going to like, and then all of a sudden your physical rhythm is going to start to go up and down, and that's going to be unpleasant for you. So, same thing here. You're going to kind of feel like, oh, I need a little snack, and you do too much. So, what you want to do is you want to train yourself into getting used to taking the time and eating when it's appropriate for your rhythm. Okay. Now, the other thing I really want to start out here with, because this is so easy, you're going to see this every day because when we showed you how to use this technology on our website, this right here, this display is really what we focused on. Now, I want you to see what's going on over here. Now I'm going to bring my user information back up here for just a second, and we're going to talk about this. Now, this is important. This is a very powerful rest and healing phase, okay? And this is the first thing that when a new user starts, I tell them, listen, this only comes one day out of every 6.5. And during that day, you want to take it off. This is not the time you go to the gym. This is not the time that you decide to go do all your extra errands and work 10 hours extra in a shift you didn't have to. That is going to run your body down, and then you're going to pay for this. Okay. So, this is very important that you start to understand where you are here. Now, when we do our predictions page, we break it into days. And once you know what your day is, like if you pay attention to the predictions and we're saying, hey, we're in day three. In day three, let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to move ahead 12 hours at a time. Now, these graphs are not the same as these. This is a 24-hour span, and it's putting everything together so you can see how all of these rhythms are coming together in a 24-hour span. This is the exact same 24-hour span. Look at, you see how this is duplicated here, just like it's duplicated here. Now, the emotional rhythms are too long, 6.5 day rhythms. So it's going to take 13 12-hour sections or 6.5 days to get through this. So we're going to move 12 hours at a time. Now, I want you to watch this time bar right here. Watch. I'm going to hit it again. Now, I'm moving it 12 hours at a time, right? So now we just moved a day. Now we just moved 2 days. So right there, I'm starting to come into my healing phase. I would want to capture this even a little bit before that. So I'm using these macro controls, the double arrows. This moves it 12 hours at a time. And on Sunday, the 22nd at 5:53 a.m., which this is an odd one, right? My healing sequence is actually going to start early morning. So if I try to sleep all night long and then I come in here and try to sleep, maybe it's not so hard, but I'm telling you, you're going to see it's very easy to rest during this period if you can. Okay. Now, I would want to harness this. So then I would want to know from the 22nd at 5:53 a.m. Now I'm going to move forward here again, 12 hours. We're going to get to the other side of this. One more here. Okay. We're starting to come out of it now. So now we're at Sunday, 6:35 a.m. You see how that's almost a full day where I'm in a rest and healing phase. So from Monday to Sunday, I'd be laying out, not doing too much. True statement. And I would suggest everybody, if they can, and they can coordinate with the people around them, they do the same thing. In fact, for anybody who's struggling with an active condition where they have some illness or health concern that's going on, this is the number one way to empower your body is just knowing when these down spells are. So that's what we're going to cover here mostly today. This is a long enough video already. I could go on for days about how this works, but we got to start somewhere. We're going to build on this, but first thing I want you to really notice is what's happening here and what's happening here. And this is also something that we can talk about briefly before we end here, okay? Now, as I fast forward the P frequency, I'm going to do this a few times so you can see the variation. All right, so every 12 hours, you see how the P frequency is resetting and coming to a different spot? Watch again. It's going to happen here right in the middle. Now it popped up. Watch again. So you can see that the magenta and the purple lines are staying pretty constant. This blue one is the one that fluctuates quite a bit. And that one is the one that you kind of want to watch as well. So this is just some pointers to start to see how the movements here happen and where we're going to go here in the future. Well, we're going to have to build on this. That is enough. We already went way longer than we should have here. And let's stay tuned for the next one. All right. We'll talk to you soon.